Welcome to the Abundance Code, the podcast where we delve into the secrets of unlocking abundance in mind, money, and meaning. I'm your host, Jason Stanley. So when you look at your life and you look at where you're at, take the time to look back at what brought you to that point. Maybe you've accomplished something, right? Maybe you're working on something. Who are you becoming in that process? Find the joy and the contentment in that process, and your life will take on new meaning. Hey, welcome back to the Abundance Code, where we discuss mind, money, and meaning. I'm Jason Stanley. So last time we talked about being unreasonable. We talked about, when you're setting goals for yourself, how the language you use and that kind of stuff all helps drive you to be a little bit more successful. But today what I want to talk about is what happens when you accomplish whatever you've come after. What happens when you accomplish that goal, right? And I referred to this one of the first ones that I talked to you guys about in terms of goals, right? We call it the art of accomplishment, right? What happens, right? How do you find meaning in your accomplishments? How do you find fulfillment in your accomplishments and what you do? And a lot of times you'll see people, and I've seen this a lot in my life just because of the type of world I operate in, being in the financial world. I see people who have accomplished amazing things that are completely unfulfilled, that still aren't happy, still struggle with their relationships and that type of thing. And so what I'd like to assert is this idea that the accomplishment isn't the important piece. The accomplishment is the outcome of a lot of little compounded behaviors. So whether you're working to, hit a certain income level, whether you're working to be able to buy a house, or you're working to be able to have a better body, fitness-wise, right? Whether you're working to be able to do whatever it is, right? All of those things take changing and modifying your behavior, right? So if you remember the stories that I've shared with you over the past couple weeks and months or so, there are numerous times where I would change the way that I said things and change the way that I behaved, and what that would do is it would start to compound in my life, and it would allow me to accomplish something that I was after. And while the accomplishment is neat, right, it often isn't the ultimate fulfilling part of that, right? What you need to be doing is celebrating who you've become through that process, right? Because each accomplishment, each goal that you set for yourself, everything that you do, right, should be changing you for the better, right? If you're accomplishing, great financial success, but your personal life is in disarray, your relationships suck, there's something wrong. You're not doing it right. And so what I'm going to tell you is that all of your goals, everything that you really need to be focused on, how is this making me better? How do I become better as a person? How does this impact the world around me in a better way? How does it impact my family in a better way, right? Not just being able to buy more stuff, right? We live in a society where we're very materialistic. We love having material things, and there's nothing wrong with having comfortable life, having nice things, that kind of stuff. The bottom line is it's not going to make you happy, right? What happens when you purchase something new, right? You get a little dopamine hit. When somebody goes, "Oh, I really like that," you get a little shot of dopamine, and we're dopamine junkies, right? That's why we like social media so much, is because every time you post something and somebody likes it, guess what? Dopamine hit. So we're like the little rats, just constantly hitting the feeder bar because we're getting a treat, a reward back. And that is why you see people a lot of times have achieved a lot of financial success, and they go through cars like they're candy. They are constantly buying new things and stuff like that, because when you buy something new, right, you get that excited about it, and you get that dopamine hit and that kind of thing. And actually, there's a lot of research on this. If you actually spend your money on experiences, it's far more rewarding than when you buy stuff. And the reason is every time you tell the story of that experience, you now relive it, and your brain releases the same chemicals that it released while you were doing whatever that is, whatever that experience is. Maybe you went skydiving, maybe you went on a trip, something along those lines. Your brain releases those chemicals, those feel-good chemicals, when you relive that. And so there's a lot of science behind that stuff. But again, there's nothing wrong with wanting to have, more material things and, have a nice life and that kind of stuff. You have to be careful though, because sometimes those things can complicate your life a little bit more. Maybe you want a new car or something like that. You have to think in terms of, what does it cost you in insurance? What does it take to maintain it? That kind of stuff. So those things can become a little bit problematic. But who you become in the process of achieving things should be far more important than achieving an item or a goal or something like that, right? Because anything that you're wanting to go out and accomplish, any goal that you have, creates a change in your behavior. And remember, we talked about little things that compound over time. And so in every area of your life, you really need to be understanding how compounding returns affects your life. Whether it's in your finances, whether it's in your physical life, whether it's in your, spiritual life, so on and so forth. Doing little things and being diligent about them on a regular basis will have terrific returns for you. And it will make you a better person. I'm not saying I'm some great guru or something like that you should emulate. I have my struggles too. But I constantly want to be improving who I am. I constantly want to be improving my knowledge. I constantly want to be improving my physical body and as good as I can. I still want to have fun. So I'm not somebody who's, going to be super restrictive in my life. I'll still go out and, have a steak with the next person and have some wine and stuff like that. But it's this, what I want to do is be able to find joy and fulfillment in the process of life and the struggles of life that we view. A lot of times we get hit with struggles, and a lot of times we think, oh God, this is horrible. I've shared with you that I had cancer at one point in my life. I've been homeless in my life. And at no point in time did I ever look at that as a life-ending event or a catastrophic event. I just said, this is something that I'm going through, and this is something that I'm going to learn from. And what I found by doing that, by shifting the way that I looked at a problem or a situation, I found great fulfillment in it. I was able to learn so much from it, and it's put me at so much more peace, right? Now, I do have a very strong faith in God, and if you don't, that's up to you. I'm not here to tell you what to believe, but at the end of the day, I do have very strong faith in God, and I think that adds to that fulfillment in my life. And what I look at is who I have become over time. Am I becoming a better partner for my spouse? Am I becoming a better father of my children? Am I becoming better to my clients? Am I becoming better to my employees? Am I becoming better to the world around me? How am I improving the world around me? Right? I'm not big on this idea of leaving legacy. In fact, I think I saw an interview with Mike Tyson, and he said it best. Legacy is for arrogant people. Legacy, this idea that you're going to leave a legacy, is your ego, right? So, because in 100 years from now, right, we're all dead, and nobody's going to remember us after about 150 years. You're going to be a picture on somebody's wall. So, but how do you improve the world while you're here? How do you make a difference while you're here? You may not be somebody that ends up in the history books. You might be somebody that ends up in the history books. You might be, the person that gets us to Mars. Elon may screw it up, but you may not be. Those people are few and far between. All right. And so that's okay. You don't have to be. But what you do need to do is figure out how you're improving yourself on a daily basis. How are you bettering yourself on a regular basis? And how do you find joy in that, right? Not just joy in accomplishing something, not just joy in achieving something new, right? Because all that is the dopamine hit that we're talking about. Longer term joy, a lot like longer term love in a relationship. So early on in a relationship, you're more physically attracted to somebody. It's all gooey and feely and butterflies and all this stuff, right? And all these different chemicals being released, endorphins and serotonin, and there's another one in there. I can't remember what it is right now. That they call the love chemical. All those things are being released at such a massive magnitude. But your brain can't keep doing that, and actually you kind of get used to it. It's just like any other drug that we do, right? That's what creates drug addicts. And, so over time that starts to wane. And what you're left with is, if it's a good relationship, you're left with, the good love, the longer term love, the longer term relationship. And you find joy in little things, right? You find the joy in what you do together as a couple. You find joy in spending time together and that kind of stuff. It's not all this big, hot and heavy, romantic, physical thing that you're doing anymore. It's now daily life, right? And so that's why a lot of people struggle with relationships too, is because they get into that stage and it doesn't feel as exciting anymore, and sometimes you struggle with even liking the person you're with, right? Sometimes you struggle with liking yourself. And so when we're honest with ourselves and we look at our lives, what are we doing to find joy in who we are, where we are, and what we're working towards, right? So finding that meaning, I think, is far more important than any accomplishment that you can do. I have terrific visions for what I want to accomplish in life. I have no small feat of what I want to do in life. But at the same time, I'm okay and I'm pleased with where I'm at. I'm comfortable with where I'm at. All right. Now, I'm not complacent. I'm comfortable. I'm content. So I always, when I pray, one of the things I say is, thank you, God, for everything that I have. And if this is all that I ever have, it's more than enough. I'm more than content with where I'm at, right? And because it's true, I am. And we live in a society that tells you should not ever be content, right? That we constantly are saying, you deserve this, you deserve that, you deserve this. All the media, everything that we have is built around telling us what's wrong with our world, what's wrong with our bodies, what we don't have, what's wrong with our home, what's wrong with our cars, what's wrong with everything, right? That is how our society is built. And it's built so that you'll be a consumer, so that you'll keep buying stuff, hoping that you'll achieve something, that you'll, be happy at the end, right? And there's a reason that we call it the pursuit of happiness, because it is a pursuit. We have to choose to focus on what is good in our life on a regular basis. We have to choose how we look at things. So as you set goals, right, and as you start working towards them, it is not the end result that makes it all worthwhile. It's who you become in that process, right? If you are working to, get in better shape, lose weight, whatever it is, you're going to become better physically. You're going to be able to do more physically. You're going to be able to, have more energy around the people that you're with on a regular basis. And those are the things that you need to be celebrating along the way. So a lot of times I think that we miss the celebration of who we are and who we're becoming, and we don't celebrate the struggle. And so when you're talking about the struggle, a lot of times we hit those things. Remember when I was talking about setting your goals and visualizing achieving those goals, I said visualize some of the problems and the struggles that you might have in the process. So one of the best ways that you can start to find some fulfillment and enjoyment in certain things is by teaching what you learn to other people. Part of the reason that I'm doing this podcast is simply because I believe it is important for us to give back. And when we give back, when we help other people, and we share the information that we've learned, and we share how things have changed in our lives, we are making the world a better place. And also, too, it brings you more fulfillment. You've always heard the old adage, it's better to give than to receive. And that's absolutely the truth. And we live in a society right now where we perceive giving as writing checks. And you can give in so many different fashions, so many different ways. Maybe it's encouraging somebody that's around you. Maybe it's, buying a meal for somebody, or just spending time listening to them. Maybe it's sharing something that you've been through in your life that you've grown from, and then they can learn from that, and now they can grow from it, right? Everything starts to compound over time, and every little action that we do has great ramifications. Remember that story I told you about being unreasonable, where I went in and met with a potential client. I uncovered an error, and that led to me meeting somebody that became a great mentor in my life. And then that led to me being able to be, in a situation where I was surrounded by the people that I needed to be able to do business with, and that led to even more. And, all of it changed the trajectory of my life. And I get more joy out of sharing that story than I ever did from the clients that I got from that, from the money that came from the business aspect of that. I get more joy out of sharing that experience that I was able to do by being unreasonable in that situation. I get more joy about it, telling people about that and encouraging people to chase those types of things than I do from what it actually gave me, right? And what it gave me was the life that I live now, and gave me the ability to be able to do this. I have the time to be able to do these kinds of things, and so on and so forth. But the joy really is about the process. And at the time, I didn't necessarily know it, right? And I think it's very important that wherever you're at in life, take a second, look back over your life and look at what has brought you to where you're at, right? And there's something good in your life, something good in everybody's life, generally speaking. Maybe it's just that you have a pair of shoes on, right? Maybe it's that you got a roof over your head. Maybe it's that you had a hot meal last night. Whatever it is, you have something to be thankful for, something that's good. Look at what you've done that has brought you to that point. If there's areas in your life you don't like, look at what you've done to bring you to that point. Because it hasn't been, it's rarely been one action. It's been a succession of decisions that takes you to that point. Yes, there's the one-offs. You decide to drive drunk, you kill somebody, you're probably going to prison. And that was a one-time decision that you made that was horrible. But generally in your life, things compound over time. And those small decisions compound over time to magnify into something great or something that's not so good. So when you're looking at your life, I believe it's very important to be introspective. We live in a society that does not encourage it. We live in a society that tells you to keep building bigger, better, keep working for more and more stuff. He who dies with the most stuff wins kind of mentality. And that's not at all the case. I did a fun experiment in my own life one time, where I actually downsized in my life. I was building a really nice house. It was about 5,000 square feet. It was a beautiful home. At the time, I was single, recently divorced. I had my kids half the time. And I walked in and I said, wow, this is really cool. I don't need all this. And, I'd kind of gotten into watching this like Living Small kind of shows, like where people are living in tiny homes and all this other stuff. And I said, I wonder if there's something to this having less stuff. And I ended up moving into a duplex kind of place, or a townhome, much smaller, like 1,400 square feet. And when the containers showed up to move my stuff in, I had a full-on panic attack, because it was against everything society says to do. But doing that action helped me understand and help put some stuff into perspective for me and change the way that I currently live. I don't live in a big, huge mansion. I own a lot of different real estate. I own a lot of properties, but I don't live in a big house. I live very modestly. I don't have the need to do like everybody else does and show off all this other stuff anymore. I do enjoy nice things, and I enjoy them. I enjoy having nice cars. I enjoy, flying around in airplanes and stuff like that I've shared with you guys in the past. But I don't have this desire to have this gigantic home and all these other things that go along with that. And in part because I downsized. I did something that was completely against what society says to do. Society says you got to keep upsizing, keep upsizing, keep upsizing, keep upsizing, keep stretching and growing and trying to get more stuff. And what I realized is when I had a chance to downsize, I suddenly was able to upsize in a lot of other areas of my life. In my experiences, the amount of experiences that we had, the amount of times that we could travel and stuff went up exponentially during that time period. I was able to put more money away and start building up other assets, and my net worth started to skyrocket from there. So by doing things like that, I was able to change the outcome of my life. But it took, like I said, being unreasonable, like I've told you before. It took finding joy in a current situation. And so I didn't live in the type of neighborhood and the type of situation that everybody thought you should for the income level that I was at. And when I was unapologetic about it, it was really interesting. My friends changed their perspective on it. So when I was unapologetic about how I was living, and I didn't make an excuse for it, I said, it's my choice. I'm going to live like this. Suddenly other people started becoming interested in it. They didn't look down on me. They were curious about why I was doing those things. But it also allowed for me to find joy in having less stuff and being able to spend more time with my kids and the people around me. It also allowed me to be able to give back more. It gave me a lot of different stuff. But simultaneously, like I just said, my net worth grew and all this other stuff. I had more stuff by having less stuff. It was crazy when you really think about it. It seems counterintuitive that in order to achieve more is to have more, or to have less sometimes. By having less, I was able to achieve more. And who I became in that process is a lot of fun. Like I said, I like telling these stories probably a lot more and sharing these things a lot more than the accomplishments themselves. So when you look at your life and you look at where you're at, take the time to look back at what brought you to that point. Maybe you've accomplished something, right? Maybe you're working on something. Who are you becoming in that process? Find the joy and the contentment in that process, and your life will take on new meaning. Find the excitement in the struggle, right? Every new struggle that you have is something that is making you a better person. Some struggles may take you out of this world, and that, there's nothing you can do about that. And I told you I had cancer. Could have taken me off this planet. There's nothing I could do about that. I was not going to let that disrupt my joy in life. I was not going to let that upset me. And I wasn't going to stop pursuing other things, stop pursuing being a better person. I wasn't going to shift my focus just to focus on one thing singularly like that. So I instead focused on what was good in my life and continue to try to do that on a daily basis. So I begin my day with I begin my day and my day the same way. So when I get up in the morning, I have a whole morning routine, and we'll go through that at some point in time. I've taken some pieces from Andrew Huberman and Tony Robbins and some other people and stuff like that, and adopted some of my own things that I do in the morning. But generally, I always start with a prayer of everything that I'm thankful for. And then when I go to bed, I do the same thing. So when I go to bed, I start naming the things that I'm thankful for, right? I thank God for them. And I name them specifically. So if it's my kids, I name them by name. If it's my home, the shoes that I wear, everything that I can be thankful for. And generally, the interesting thing is I have so much of it that I fall asleep before I ever finish. And that's an amazing problem to have. But by doing that activity, what I'm doing is, like when we talked about the words that we use, when I'm doing that activity, I'm now programming myself, my mind, my brain to look for ways to be thankful and what I have to be thankful for. It doesn't mean that things are always all rosy. It doesn't mean that I don't have problems. It doesn't mean that I don't have a hard time every now and then. It doesn't mean that I don't get upset. I do. I get upset all the time. Doesn't mean that I don't have anxiety. I have anxiety like you would not believe. We'll talk about that at a different time too. I've been in and out of the hospital multiple times with panic attacks. But what it means is that by shifting the way that I look at things, I'm always looking at what I'm thankful for. And by looking at what I'm thankful for, I'm able to give back. And when I'm able to give back, I get more fulfillment out of life than anything or any material thing that I've accomplished. So in the meantime, we'll let you get back to your day. But as I've always said, buck the status quo in order to grow. We'll talk to you guys soon.